Well, we'll get started. So I want to welcome everyone. Thank you. On behalf of Makuho and the session presenters, I'd like to thank you for attending today's session. An evaluation form will be available at the end of the conference or at the end of today's session, and it's available on the conference website. And I will put the link in the chat so you have access to this. Please be sure to complete this at the end. And without further ado, I'm going to pass this over so we can get started.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here and taking time to get some professional development in. If you could share where you're joining from in the chat, I'll be keeping an eye on that as well during the presentation. So my name is Dr. Komal Chandra. I am a residence coordinator at New Jersey Institute of Technology in Newark, New Jersey. I do just want to see, can you all hear me okay? Hi, Mary. Hi, Katie. Hi, Ryan. I think Ryan was, is this the Ryan that was also in Relay with us? I hope everyone is doing well today. So yes, he was. So this presentation is leadership during unprecedented times. I don't know how many times I've used the word unprecedented for the first time in my life and over again. And during this time, I realized how important it is to maintain operational efficiency, but also support your staff and support staff development during this time. For those of you that are here, what are some of your roles? Are you a, thank you, Crystal. Yes, I did get my PhD last May. The day we closed down the university is the day I defended my dissertation. So a lot of operational efficiency to make sure things could work while doing my PhD at the same time. And my sister went to Misericordia University. Sorry, I will very frequently interact with the chat and the presentation to keep things a little bit more lively. So tell me, what roles are you working in right now? Are you an assistant director, associate director? Are you a residence coordinator, residence director? Just so I have an idea of how we can frame the conversation as we move forward. All right, how do I go? Would be great. Okay, there we go. Next slide. So learning outcomes. So our learning outcomes for this session is going to be to identify how collective trauma holistically impacts student affairs, learn leadership techniques to maintain operational efficiency during long-term crises, and learn how to support staff and staff development during long-term crises. Also, if there's any typos on here, I am so sorry. I'm teaching you operational efficiency and to do things on time. I, of course, did this presentation not as early as I would like. And the time I allotted today, I had a 2 to 3 hour suicidal ideation follow-up, followed by like right 10 minutes before this, a drug call. So, you know, as much as you plan, like James and I were talking about, we know in student affairs, we roll with the punches. So if there is anything off in the presentation, I will adjust it, but I appreciate your time. What I wanted to start off with is describe what unprecedented time means for you at your institution. Does, you know, obviously COVID-19 has impacted us all, but what else are we dealing with? What else about COVID-19? What else about the economy, racism? We're dealing with several pandemics at once, it feels like. So what are you dealing with that causes this to be an unprecedented time for you and your institution? You could just type some things in the chat. Just want to say hi to everyone. Hi, Michael. Colleen is a former director, Andrew's associate director. Hi, Will. Good luck in grad school. We have a lot of associate directors, hall directors, area directors, RDs. So the unknown and continuous change, absolutely. How many of you are also dealing with just people's concern about safety during this time? Can they go home? Can they stay here? Living in Newark, we are a very diverse institution, but that doesn't mean that we're doing the best we can to support our Black students and students of color. So we are working with making sure that we're doing our part in terms of the race pandemic, staffing vacancies, absolutely, budget, assignments, billing, housing operations. I hear you, Trina. That's where we're at as well. Using a hotel for the first time, yes. absolutely, and housing operations in general. So we know that there's a lot that is unprecedented, and it's more than the usual that we deal with, because I feel like in student affairs we usually deal with a myriad, but this is just above and beyond in terms of what we're dealing with. So I wanted to take a moment and acknowledge you are doing a good job. You are doing a great job, each of you. And you know what's funny is I'm looking at some of your faces, and that quick sense of relief and that small smile so many of you just showed me, that just lets me know that you probably don't hear that as much as we need to be, heard this. It is not business as usual, but I feel like we're being told that, just keep things running. Everything is great. So what if we're juggling like 5 million things at once, and your own safety is at risk? It is not business as usual. And we really need to understand that, and acknowledge that what we're being asked to do, nobody has done before. And however far you've gotten from March till now is a great job, because you know what? We have nothing to compare this to. We're all doing this for the first time. I'm sure we're not all Zoom, PhDs in Zoom and WebEx and virtual community building. And maybe they'll create one later, but realize that what we're doing is something that's truly unique. And I want to say thank you for the time that you're taking to be here for this presentation and for your own professional development and personal development, but also you are doing a lot. So thank you. Wanted to talk about how I know we're aware that COVID and health affects all areas of our life, but I wanted to talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness and how the situation that we're dealing with, and if we want to take care of ourselves and operational efficiency of yourself, your staff, your building, we need to understand how this climate can affect our students, ourselves, our staffs, like I said, and see the big picture. So I want to talk about how COVID, as well as all the other pandemics and everything we're dealing with right now, can affect all these 8 areas. So emotionally, I'm sure people are worried about your relationship strains, different roles in your relationships, worrying about family or self, loved ones, just the health of everybody. Financially, this can affect your colleagues and how they're thinking about bills, groceries, medical costs, testing costs. Just financially worrying, are other people living with you now? And now they're stuck with you because they can't quarantine somewhere else. Socially, I know we talk about our programs, right? Is it safe for our students to have programs together? How are they hanging out? Is it safe for you to see your friends? Is it safe to attend funerals? Is it safe to see people for a happy occasion? There's so many things that are, COVID is affecting that we didn't think about beforehand. Spiritually, I know I have a lot of students that have been coming, a lot of staff members are saying, what's my purpose? Why is this happening? When is it going to end? Occupationally, job security. I know some of you mentioned it there, job vacancies, security. Physically, it's hard to take care of yourself physically in terms of gyms can be closed. What food are we eating? Are we just eating comfort food? Sleep concerns. I saw a study that people are grinding their teeth and clenching their teeth now. I think I'm doing that as well. And that I X'd out of that study. It was too real for me, because I myself have realized that your body will manifest that stress in different ways. If you don't release that energy and stress, it does manifest physically as well. Intellectually, I know Katie and I were just talking about, did we meet before? And she asked me about something before COVID, and I can't think about any dates before then. COVID brain, or just general brain fatigue. And environmental, keeping your space safe and your facilities and your properties safe. So wanted to talk about, what you're working through, especially as leaders, directors, hall directors, associate directors. You're focusing on these 8 dimensions of wellness in your everyday life. Your colleagues are focusing on these. We are impacted completely holistically. And it's more than just, okay, there's a pandemic, stay 6 feet away. No, there's so much more than that. And I guess if we're going to talk about operations and operational efficiency, realize that your operations also surround around these 8 dimensions of wellness. Oh my gosh, Katie, temporarily relocated to live. Okay, I'll live in. So you aren't even in your home. Imagine how, that's affecting all your 8 areas of wellness. And you bring me to my next point. So many of us in higher ed that are pursuing PhDs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Abraham Maslow came up with a pyramidal scheme of, for somebody to reach their highest point, their self-actualization, they need to meet other parts of the pyramid first. And the most important is physiological: air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. Okay, let's take reproduction out of it, but AKA student affairs and housing, right? So for our students to reach their self-actualization, we need to meet all the other areas, which start with housing. If our students don't feel safe, if they don't feel that their shelter is safe, that they're safe from their neighbors, that they have a place to sleep, that they have food, then, so first of all, you need those things to feel safe. Once you feel safe with personal security, your job is safe, your resources, your health, then you can move on to love and belonging, esteem, and then self-actualization. And so what is goal setting per need? So if you're figuring this out, whether it's for your staff, whether it's for your students, questions for each of those goals. So physiological, survival goals. Are your students able to sleep? Do they have food and water? Now, when we move our quarantine students from one room to a temporary assignment, or as Katie has now moved from somewhere else to all live in, are you sleeping comfortably? Are you in, do your students have their bedding, their mattresses, or their mattress pad that they normally do in their regular assignment? Do they have food and water? A quarantine student can't leave their room. So maybe when they would be able to access the water fountain down the hall, they're not able to do that anymore. So do you see how that all can lead to questions about safety because you feel like you're confined? So what we've been doing to combat that is we're giving snack boxes to our students in quarantine. We're making sure we're giving them bottled water with that thought process of our students maybe feeling, these survival concerns and safety concerns. For safety goals, making sure that our team is feeling safe. Are they feeling accepted? Are they able to make meaningful connections, which is difficult in a virtual world, we know. And then you can grow based on interest-based goals and then strength-based goals of, am I reaching my full potential? I mean, not a lot of studies are able to be done at the moment. However, everybody right now is, as long as you can focus on the first three, survival, safety, and acceptance, you're in a good spot. So I do challenge you to think about these three areas as we move through for operational efficiency. Can we meet these goals for our building, ourselves, and our staff? All right. So operational changes to COVID. I had a great Joker moment yesterday because I said, what are the things that I've had to deal with as a department that we've had to deal with because of COVID? If you can relate to any of these, just, I guess, put a yes as we go through it. But occupancy, I know we had to deal with decoupling rooms, closing down rooms, closing lounges, game equipment, students taking classes are in the same room. So that was an issue. Staffing, we've had resignations, safety concerns. Is it safe for our staff to work? Changes in protocol procedures. So are we allowed to do welfare checks in person? Do you have to have your mask on if you're responding to it? We just had a suicidal situation and I'm like, am I supposed to be in this lounge right now? Are we 6 feet apart? Should I be talking about this when I'm asking about their feelings? Duty calls, office procedures, safety initiatives. So using gloves, plexiglass, 6 feet distance. These are all things that we didn't have to think about last year. Health services and testing. Do we have accurate information and dissemination of health information? What about testing costs, turnaround time, data, HIPAA? Do you tell everybody if somebody's positive or not? Because that's health information, privacy and protection. How many of you had to install more hand sanitizers or in your building? If you have, okay, I'm seeing the noddings of the yes, thank you. And I appreciate all the nods and the smiles. It makes me realize that y'all are on the same page. Fire safety, room inspections. I do have a question. Are you all still doing room inspections during this time? I know that caught us by surprise as well. And are they happening? How do we keep staff safe during them? Reimbursements. Who is reimbursing us for all these gloves and masks and hand sanitizers? Oh, you did a drill with for a fire drill with public safety. I had quarantine students. So are the quarantine students supposed to leave during the fire drill? Do they stay in the building during a fire drill? Isn't that illegal? So that was fun to figure out when they started evacuating. Quarantine, do we even have enough space on campus? Who's cleaning these quarantine rooms? Travel advisories. If a student is going to a different state, do they have to quarantine? Do you have to quarantine if you're visiting family? Food delivery, who's delivering the food? Are you paying the people who are going to be helping with food delivery, dietary restrictions? We had to close down a residence hall and test every single student. I think there are about 300 students in that building. We shut down the residence hall, brought testing, tested each floor one by one, delivered food, and only when each suite was negative did we release them. That was crazy. We needed staff who was helping us with that. How, we had athletics helping with delivering food. Public safety came in for an incident at that time, completely ghostbustered up. And I'm like, wow, I have a fabric mask on and I'm delivering food to students, and you have like complete PPE. Virtual meetings, how are you dealing with webcam fatigue, online learning and meeting effectiveness? What about the judicial process, virtual meetings? And then if somebody, messes, is found responsible, do we need this behavior on campus during a pandemic? So do you ask them to leave? Do you find different sanctions? What about community building virtually, mental health concerns, online trainings? For budget, I just put LOL because I started laughing after I wrote budget. But what else? So this is everything I wrote, and I know this isn't even all of what we're doing. If you need this slide, screenshot it. If anybody asks, what do you do or how are things different? Or if your, supervisors ask, oh, things are fine in, in student affairs and res life, right? Take a screenshot. I did the work for you. What else is on your plates that I didn't list here? I'm going to give you a second to think about it. And if you're good, just kind of give me like a thumbs up. All right, we've got one thumbs up. She's like, that was too much to read. I'm not even going to try to add to it. Basically, I just wanted to let you know it's a lot. And I purposely wrote all this down without just saying it because I want you to know, look at this list. You are doing a lot and more than I think we've ever been prepared for. So the fact that we made all these changes on the fly, right, as best as possible with the resources available to us means we're doing a good job so far. But now, how do you do things better? Oh my gosh, yep, training, opening, et cetera. I completely forgot. Thank you, Andrew. Yep, virtual training. How do you do RLD online? How do you do behind closed doors online? That was fun to figure out. Yes, on top of all that, just our normal stuff. So how do you do better operationally? So step one, I would say reevaluate. And you only have small population. Oh, you only have emergency housing right now, Misty. So how can we do things better? Realize that step one, reevaluate everything and take a step back and look at the big picture. We cannot maintain business as usual. Reevaluate and reestablish your purpose and goals. Find out from your superiors what is important. What are the things we need to meet? Obviously, that our residents are safe, right? Our staff members are safe. That should be probably our first goal in this moment. But what can we take off your plate? I know that typically me and my staff, we are on committees like professional development committee and recognition committee. So on top of everything going on, we have these other side collaterals. Are those collaterals needed at the moment? Especially those of you that are in director roles, I challenge you to think about what can you take off the plate of your staff members that might just not be needed at the moment. Maybe we can reintegrate it later. But I know that when I ask our staff members and colleagues, what would help you feel appreciated or help you do your job better? There's certain things that maybe does not need to happen right now. Does anyone have any examples of that? So for us, like I said, some of our collateral assignments, they weren't needed right now. And how do we balance these duties across levels? So maybe there are things that the director is working on that now the associate directors are working on because they need to get done, but maybe not priority at the moment. We know that, changes are happening, shift in plans sometimes that comes from above, down, or maybe reactionary, but be transparent about those changes with your staff. And share your leadership. Allow another staff member to step up because maybe this would be a great leadership opportunity for them. And it would also maybe alleviate some of the stress that you're holding on to. So general tip, focus on clarity and big picture. So big picture, what are the main goals that you have, the main main things that you need to accomplish operationally, and make sure that's clear when you're going to tell your staff members, and focus on clarity. I know it can get very confusing. I know I've been confused in terms of, so what is important right now? You know, is programming numbers important? Making sure students are safe, 6 feet apart, you know, are we maintaining our operations? What is the big picture? And can you be clear about it? That would be the first step. Second step would be to identify your team. So who are your team members? Is it your Res Life staff, your students, your obviously your colleagues that you work with now, but who else? So for us, when we talked about closing down that residence hall, the RAs that were in that hall were also quarantined. And then if our other resident assistants come and help out, and if something spreads, now you've knocked out every leader on campus. So we had to think about, how are we going to maintain our operations? Who can we utilize? So maintaining good relationships with your health services departments, facilities, athletics, student life. We had people from all different parts of campus coming to help us deliver food, because that's what we needed help with, food and water. Your desk attendant staff, your office assistant staff, identify who all these different partners are so you know who is on your team. Identify what their strengths are. So your residence coordinators, your residence directors, what are their strengths? What are they already bringing to the table that you can utilize? If somebody was already very tech savvy, I'm sure they're being called all the time now for Zoom call help or WebEx help, different flyers. Utilize the strengths that you already have on staff, especially in a time of crisis. You need to know, what are people good at? Give it to them, whether it's a certain task or a responsibility, and let them run with it, rather than us trying to figure out, you know, how to learn a new system, software. Does somebody already know it? Utilize other people's strengths. Check in with your team and make sure they have what they need to do their job. Whether that might mean we need to pay money for a different software, whether that means we need to give them a certain training, but make sure that they have what they need to do their job. Does somebody need a laptop to work from home? I know some team members were saying that, I think Katie said she had to live on campus now. Does she have us? I'm sitting here wondering, does she have the right comforters and pillows? What does she need to do her job well? Because all this matters. And these are the small questions that matter. Delegate. I know a lot of us, I know myself included, I want control. I want to make sure things are getting done. And sometimes it's easier for me to do it myself, but as a leader, delegate. Create smaller work groups and share what your expectations are to get that work done. And be consistent on how often will your team meet, what platform, how will updates be shared, and how can we make things more efficient. So do you have one Google Doc or one shared drive that everyone is putting all their information in? Or are you looking for emails? Are updates getting lost in emails? Are you utilizing GroupMe? Are you utilizing text messages? I know when sometimes we get updates, one update is in a text message, one update's in an email, and one update is on the drive. So therefore, I realized that staff members are getting confused because they're missing where these updates are coming from. So before you even get started, identify how often will your team meet? What platform are they going to use? Where is all the updated information going to be shared? So if a team member is out, where can they be caught up? Doing all this will help overall. Ensure your team knows their information, test them, and work through scenarios and equip them with resources. What that means is, a lot of information has changed, right? Your testing policy, your quarantine policy, staffing in general. So is everybody up to date? Where is that information kept? Is it being written down, or is it just verbal? And if you're having just verbal meetings, I very much encourage you to make sure that either the videos are recorded, like the Zoom is being recorded, or to make sure that somebody's taking notes, so at least notes are able to be found. Test your staff. I know that my office assistants, I can hear them giving misinformation. So I stop them and I say, all right, let's talk about, well, how do you handle a student that says they're not feeling well? What is the process? Work through these scenarios, basically like behind closed doors, but for your professional staff as well as your student staff. So every staff meeting, we are doing a verbal behind closed doors. This is the scenario. How do you work through it? That is how I realized the inconsistencies that my staff thinks. Literally just the other day, one of my staff members said, so are we allowing our residents to have guests? Because I'm not sure. That's a professional staff member. So if a professional staff member is confused, what do you think our students are, right? I know there's a lot of changes. Work through those scenarios, ask those questions, and in front of everybody, have your staff work through the responses so they can hear the correct way to respond. And make sure you're equipping your staff with resources. So big tip, share your power in decision making and promote collaboration. So once you know who your team is, delegate tasks to make sure that we're all on the same page and getting things done together. All right, step 3. Cool, get organized. We already talked about this a little bit, but be consistent in what your method and frequency is of follow-up. Are you somebody that meets bi-weekly? Are you somebody who needs to meet weekly? And what method? For me, I tell my RA staff, all right, I need this posted every week by Wednesday. I need an update because I'm going to go on the drive and I'm just going to make sure that things are done. So that way it's not a surprise in terms of what I'm looking for and when I'm looking for it. Set up meetings ahead of time, and they can be canceled later if not needed. But at least if you're setting up your meeting schedule ahead of time, it's consistent. We know what to expect. And if we don't need to meet that time, that's fine as well. The biggest thing is block off time in your schedule for catch-up days and block off time for follow-up. So for example, if I do my budgeting and every 2 weeks I block off 2 hours so I can go back, go through all my budgets and receipts, because I know when I have to do it at the end of the month, I am very confused. So I realized by putting in weekly time and block off time, even if I don't need to use that time, the time is there for me if I need it. Because if I don't block off that time in my schedule, I know that just your work catches up with you. I very strongly encourage you to block off time in your schedule for catch-up days, even if that's 1 hour a day for email, because I know email can also pile up. Also identify where your documents and meeting minutes are stored. We talked about that as well. So that if somebody's missing, they know where to go for information. Also, a quick tip is have templates ready ahead of time. So for us, templates that we have ready is if a student is newly going into quarantine, I don't have to sit here and draft information of where you can call for help, what you do if you're sick, where you get tested. All of that is drafted. I already have a draft for a staff member if they're sick on what to do, a draft to students in terms of how to get packages when the office is closed, how we're doing training. Does anybody else have any good templates that you've drafted that have been useful during this time? We'll do a quick time check while we're there.
I can share. We've been, because we're sort of going, sort of semester by semester as to what operating status looks like. We are using language that we developed in the fall for when we adjusted operations in the fall. We're going to use that same language for the spring. So trying to be consistent because it also matches the university communication.
That is perfect. Also, I avoid plagiarism usually, but utilize what your universities, just dialogue is the words and terminology that they use that can help you in your languages. Also, hey, there are almost 20 people in this room right now. Oh, 31, wow. Hi, everybody. There's 30 people in this room. We can help each other. I know there have been different universities that have called me and said, hey, what is your process for X, Y, and Z? And we've shared templates, and we are a consortium for a reason. So utilize each other's strengths because we're all in this together. So random things that have helped me. I've used Google Keep, which is an app on your phone, and it's basically a sticky notes, but it's on my cell phone. So per day, I can do a Google Keep sticky note for these are the 5 things I need to accomplish today. I also, James uses Corey uses a master spreadsheet that contains your roster, budget, work orders, etc., that you consistently update weekly. And you recycle and upgrade the spreadsheet annually. That is fantastic, Corey. I've made a spreadsheet that has a tab for my RAs information, all their cell phones, their email addresses, which I don't know why I just copy and paste. It has all my 1 tab for quarantine students, 1 tab for budget, 1 tab for facilities. I know it's crazy, but it helps me with having that master spreadsheet too. James, the Akuhoi online community has been a huge wealth of information. Absolutely. And we are in this together. Like I said, we're colleagues and teammates. Even if we're at different institutions, we're dealing with similar things. And, why recreate the wheel if somebody already has taken the time to do so? And Blaze, I will reach out to you as well with my template. And we can talk about even creating one for yourself that could work for you. At first I didn't lean on my office assistant as much because they're a student. And then I realized I can make my life easier by training somebody to help me because that's why they're here. So when I process my budget sheets, they do the paperwork ahead of time because I took the time to teach somebody how to help me, saved me hours of frustration. I could have done it, but it saved me hours of frustration. Ask for accountability partners, whether that's somebody here or a colleague. Hey, can you remind me to get this done? I need to follow up with this judicial by a certain time, or I need to work on certain emails and I'm struggling. Can we sit on WebEx together and just work on our emails, not talk to each other? Yes, these things, if you have an accountability partner, you are, I think, 76% more likely to accomplish your goals more than if you were doing it on your own. Delegate to your teammates, to your campus partners. I have an Excel sheet now for my one-on-ones. I used to have a notebook and then I would always lose my notebook. So I created an Excel sheet with a tab for each of my staff members. And all I'm doing is each week, I'm just updating right in the same Excel sheet because it helps me get organized and it helps my operations because I know all my information is in one Excel sheet. Google Drive is what we're using because all of our information is on Google Drive, including my meeting minutes. We just record our Zoom meetings and put it on the drive. So if somebody's not there, they can just view the meeting. And also take the time to train your staff so they can help you. I put budget and receipts. It's the only thing I could think of in the moment, but my building runs without me. I was out of the office for about 3 months last year. I had foot surgery. My building ran without a director and I have 600 students in my building and I have a staff of 20. Have your operations set. Make sure your team knows who to contact, how to handle scenarios. You've trained them, you've tested them. Do they know how to handle different scenarios through those verbal behind closed doors situations? And people will know, okay, this is who I contact for help. This is how I respond to a different scenario. By setting up your system, you can allow for easier follow through. Oh, and Kimberly said that her student staff and her have a Gmail account so everyone can see the shared drive as well and use the Moodle page to share information. Microsoft Teams, I've been hearing that it's amazing for people. Yes, so thank you all for joining this chat and sharing what's working for all of you. Around this time of the presentation, I don't know how many of you I told I had like a 2-3 hour incident today and then a second incident. So around this part of the presentation, if there are those typos, things like that, just bear with me, but I appreciate your understanding. So in terms of the last step of operational efficiency, revisit and check in often. I know the saying is that a pot never boils, but if you don't watch that pot boils faster. It sets off the fire alarm and now you have an incident report and now you have the police coming to your building. Check on your staff members. Don't just assume things are fine because I guarantee you they're probably not. They're probably going okay, but maybe somebody needs support. And it's better to check in and make sure whether it's a system, whether it's a project, whether it's how are we doing on the flu clinic? How are we doing on this large program that's coming up? How are we doing on our budget? Can you send me what you have so far? Make sure you check in often, whether that just shows support or it just helps you catch something that's a bigger issue later. Once you have a good idea of your systems, are things working well, you know who your team is, things are delegated, reevaluate again. What has been completed, what is next, and what needs more attention. Misty states that Trello is an easy to use project management tools. I have heard of Trello. I'm glad to hear that somebody's using it and that it's working well for them. Also, take note of everything you and your team have done. I guarantee you, remember that list that has all the different things we've done? I never wrote it down before. And now seeing it in front of me, I said, wow, we really did a lot. in that 1 to 2 months that we had to make operational changes, we did a lot. And I'm sharing that list with my supervisor to say, this is how much we've done. I hope people know. Take the time to appreciate and acknowledge the work of your team. They are doing a lot and you are doing a lot. So whether that's acknowledgement for yourself, but make sure you're also verbalizing that acknowledgement to your team and also your supervisors. They should know how much we're doing. My tip is to keep a document or a notebook for updates per topic area. So I'm having a different Excel sheet or a different Google folder for each of each of the areas that I'm responsible for. And for I'm asking my staff for weekly updates because at least it helps them stay on top of their work, knowing that I am also looking for their work. And I keep a sticky note of important projects. What that means is, like, even if it's a whiteboard of, these are the things I need to follow up with. So our programming, our budget, my sanctioning and judicials, I'm on certain professional development committees. I put those topics up so I can see them. And it's a nice reminder to myself, this is what I have to work on. Andrew Price has a great response. Yes, having receipts to better advocate for future resource needs. Exactly. You don't know what you need sometimes until you realize you don't have it. And that is a great time to take a note of, this is what our staff had to do, and this is why we need X, Y, and Z. This is why we need extra water on deck for when we have quarantine students, extra snack boxes. This is why we need extra light bulbs for issues and situations. And advocacy creates job security, especially during a time like this. Absolutely, Jocelyn, you are so right. These things of writing down what you do, especially during a crisis, extremely important because it shows why you are needed and why your staff is needed. And I don't know if any of you have had to basically write out why your job is important. That's happened in certain times, and it could happen, in our world now. I will send you that slide, but it is very good to talk about the impact that you have and the importance of the work you do. And yes, going through crisis, we do need to show empathy, patience, respect. Thank you so much, Trina, for saying that. Staff may have lost a loved one, illness, pre-existing condition, and other fears associated with COVID. Snaps to Trina. I absolutely appreciate you sharing that, which leads us to, I'll give us an overall. So overall tips about operational efficiency. Take off your plate or the plate that which is not imperative or impactful or important in the moment. Your staff members will be thankful, because I know there's sometimes you're doing things and you're like, why am I doing this right now? It's not important. Either explain why it's important or take it off the plate. Be clear about your expectations, your communication preferences, and the frequency of which you want information updates communicated. Schedule catch-up time for your tasks. Delegate to your team, share power, and promote collaboration. Communicate what you need, your expectations, and be transparent. Step away as needed, take a look at the big picture and reevaluate. My personal tip is stay on top of email, because there's so many updates that if you step away and you let things pile up, you kind of miss updates or things like that. It was easier. So for me, really during this time, I had to change my habit of not being on top of email and doing so. All right, I know because of time, we're going to move forward. So staff support and staff development. So staff development starts with staff support. If you want to work on your staff and your colleagues, you have to start by supporting them and realize that those colleagues are your professional staff, your colleagues, and your students. So none of us have done this before. So exactly what Trina is saying, we need to be aware that they're dealing with this the same way you are. They are unsure of what's going on. They're not sure if they're safe. They're looking for, that support. They're looking for somebody to say, things are going to be okay. Is my job safe? Is my family safe? We can't answer these questions. People have their own fears about COVID, and exactly, you're dealing with your own crises. So realize that staff support goes a long way and is the first step to staff development. And if you're going to try to support your staff, your first thing should be to self-reflect. Are you in the right frame of mind to lead your staff? And what do you need to do to be a better leader? Sometimes if you're not emotionally in the right frame of mind and you're yelling at your staff, not yelling, I apologize, but leading your staff can tell when you're stressed. My office assistant knew I was very stressed about 10 minutes before this presentation because I was running around, and I realized I had to stop, I apologized to her. I said, hey, I'm sorry for being short with you. There was that incident. I have the presentation, but I appreciate you checking in. Doing these things helps to repair a ruptured relationship. So even if you do rupture a relationship by being stressed out, explain it. Rupture and repair is a great step to building your connection with your staff and for staff support. All right. Other things you can do to support your staff. Whoops, let's go back. I don't know why this screen looks like this. The arrows don't mean anything, but PowerPoint decided to put it in this way. So I'm just going to read through different things that you can do to support your staff. Advocate for your staff, especially if you're in a decision-making position, whether it's for their safety, their support, their mental wellness. Utilize flex time or flexibility in general. I don't know if you're able to utilize flex time in your roles, but flexibility is so important. Some of you that are working from home, maybe your boss used to be the director of Res Life or the dean of students. Maybe your boss now is your 2-year-old child who's saying, Mommy, I'm hungry. Daddy, I'm hungry. And that's who you have to report to now. So, offer flexibility and just grace to your staff. Verbal acknowledgement of appreciation. Tell your staff that you appreciate them. And when they do something that's just above and beyond, make sure you're letting them know. We often take, for granted how much our staff does because we're just so used to it, but you must, appreciate it before you take it for granted. And once you feel taken for granted, sometimes that level of effort isn't matched again. Whether you can give any type of appreciation gifts like food or care packages, trust your staff and realize that you hired them for a reason and they've been great for a reason. Sometimes you need to give them some space and be clear. These are what my expectations are and don't micromanage. Check in, support them. But sometimes that space and that trust goes a long way. Be mindful of toxic positivity. Everything is not okay. Everything is not great. And that's okay. But by putting that false positivity and that false sense of everything's okay can sometimes be detrimental and toxic. So you want to be mindful of elevate the energy, absolutely, but be aware of that toxic positivity. Communicate and check in often. Realize that presence is a present. So if you are talking to your staff member one-on-one, don't be looking on your phone. Don't be looking at the wall. Don't be saying, yeah, I'm listening. Be present. That goes so far in supporting your staff members because you want to feel like they're the only thing that matters to you in this moment. That's how you build that relationship. Ask the other person what they need from you. Do you need more time? Do you need support? How can I help you in your role? What do you need to be successful? Validate their feelings. If they're stressed, it is okay. Let them know that you're allowed to feel the way you're feeling right now. Use reflective and active listening techniques. So repeating back what your staff member is saying. I know most of us know these things, but also elevate the energy. What I try to do is, I know it's silly, but in our group meetings, I'll say, all right, everybody, post your favorite meme of the day to increase everyone's mood, something random, or we still do our icebreaker questions. Even though things are crazy busy, we still do our icebreakers. Why? Because it's that moment of just relaxing a little bit. And that these little things do go a long way. Realize that individual time with a staff member is invaluable for staff development. I know sometimes you meet with multiple people at once, but trying to, if you are a director especially, or a presence coordinator and you're meeting with student staff, that individual time helps your staff members feel seen, heard, identify goals with steps for their completion, and help them get involved in areas of growth if they're in the headspace for it. And if they're not, just support them where they are. Train your staff on the skills they need to be successful during this time. A lot of our staff members didn't know how to use WebEx, Zoom as well as we do now. Did you create a training for it? Find somebody who's an expert to help your staff. How do you build community virtually? There are experts on this. Have them come in and help, whether it's present to your staff or community. Train your staff on self-care, de-stressing tips and habits. Also make sure to hold your staff accountable, keep things fair and consistent, but also be developmental and understanding, but do hold your staff accountable because your team is important, and making sure with operational efficiency, you do want to make sure that you are holding people accountable and not letting things slide. If you're able to incorporate a mentor-mentee system, maybe you want to, whether it's a senior colleague incorporated with a first year staff member, someone to go to, someone to help kind of navigate the moment that we're in. Also for your RAs, incorporating a mentor-mentee system works wonders as well. So overall tips: advocate and appreciate, give grace and space or understanding. Presence is a present, communication is key. And when following up and checking in with staff, ask more open-ended questions so you can allow for more conversation rather than, are you good? I'm good. How are things going? Great. Ask more, how are things going with that and what can I do better? What's been the most challenging part of this project? What more resources do you need? All right, and if you tell me I know all this, now what? Give yourself grace. Look for professional development opportunities for you or your staff. Ask for what you need from your supervisor or your staff. Try to do 5 things each day from your to-do list. You're all rock stars, I know, but as long as you can incorporate those 5 things, I think you've done a great job for the day. Practice what you preach in terms of wellness and self-care. Don't tell your staff to take care of themselves and then give them tasks to do Friday at 9 p.m. Be honest with your goals and expectations and realize we are doing the best we can to navigate through these unprecedented times. I know I kind of ran through things because of time, but here is the evaluation QR code. And if you have any questions, thank you, Becky, or any comments, I am open for them now. And you can always email me at any time. Whew, all right, I spoke a lot and I'm sorry if that was too fast. I am curious, were there tips that, what was new for you or what was most impactful to you? I would love to hear what worked for you. Also, while I'm talking there, I'm doing another presentation next Tuesday on behalf of Trellis Company and Trellis Foundation, and they have a great series for us supporting colleagues. So next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's called I Got You, Supporting Colleagues and Staff During Collective Trauma. So if you're interested in that, I don't know how to, you can email me and I will send you information for that. And that's a free professional development series as well. So thank you all again. Thank you for your time. I hope you learned something or at least were able to connect with the staff members that are here. It's so nice to see some familiar faces and names on here. And I appreciate all the feedback that you've been giving on the group chat. So thank you for all you do.
Again, thank you to everyone. Please make sure you complete the evaluation form. There's a link in the chat, as well as you can use the QR code up on the screen. And all of the presentation content will be uploaded to the website platform, I believe shortly after the conference or after information is shared with the program chair. We'll hope to see you all at more sessions.